Here's a preview of what you'll hear on this episode of Christian Healthy Lifestyle. We all instinctively know that Genesis 2:18 is true. It is not good that the man be alone. When we're experiencing relational disconnect, we're operating outside of our God-given design, and that's never a good thing. When we embrace this truth, yes, it's beneficial to those we serve, but there are benefits attached there for us as well. God designed us to be in connected, loving relationships. Now, women tend to accept this idea a little more readily than men. So for some of my male listeners, some male members of the Natural Nation that may be having a little bit of a hard time with this idea, think about this. Who goes on an epic vacation by themselves? Very few people, right? Isn't it better to see the historical sites or a beautiful beach or a waterfall when you're sharing that experience with someone? Welcome to the Christian Healthy Lifestyle Podcast, where I help Christians over 40 maximize their health potential so they can age gracefully and live abundantly. I'm your host, David Sandstrom, naturopathic doctor and biblical health coach, and this is episode number 155. The best way to address chronic health challenges is with lifestyle modifications. So I'm looking for people to come on the show with me and do a lifestyle audit. You tell me what health challenge you're working on, anything related to spirit, mind, and body, and I'll offer my advice. No charge. You'll be helping me make great content for the show. Go to my website, christianhealthylifestyle.com/audit, answer a few questions, and you'll be all set up. I look forward to hearing from you. This episode is part 2 of a 9-part series I'm doing on the 9 pillars of health. If you haven't listened to part 1, that's fine. Each of these episodes is going to be a standalone episode, but you may want to consider going back and listening to episode 154 and starting there. Either way, I think you'll find value here. Now, be sure to hang in there to the end of this episode because I'm going to be giving you some advice on how to establish and maintain healthy, loving relationships. But first, since we're getting started on this 9-part series in my approach to holistic health, I want to lay some groundwork. I want to give you some of the foundational understanding as to what true holistic health actually looks like. So human beings are a spirit, we have a mind, and we live in a body. So we have a spiritual component, we have a mental emotional component, and we have a physical component. And if we want to maximize our health potential, we've got to address all 3 parts to who and what we are in unison. So there's 3 parts to a human being, and we have 3 focus areas to each part for a total of 9 pillars of health. The biblical basis for this is found in Matthew chapter 22, verses 37 through 39. Jesus was asked, "What is the greatest commandment?" And he said, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the great and foremost commandment, and a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself." So in the last episode, we talked about love for God. In this episode, we're going to be talking about love for others. And in the next episode, you guessed it, we're going to be talking about love for ourselves. Now, one of the foundational beliefs or starting points for aging gracefully and living abundantly is having an understanding as to the hierarchy and the harmony of the spirit-mind-body connection. Here's how it works. A spirit animated by God will be healthier. A healthy spirit will animate our minds in healthy ways, and a healthy mind will animate our brains in healthy ways, and the brain runs the body. So let me unpack that a little bit. Our spirit is the highest and most noble part to who and what we are. Our spirit is designed to be connected with God, the Holy Spirit. And the biblical basis for this is found in John chapter 15, verse 5. Jesus says, "I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit. For without me, you can do nothing." Now, I want to give you a modern illustration for this. A computer needs a power source. Without being plugged into the wall, a computer is pretty much useless. It's pretty limited as to what it can do. It could serve as a decoration. It could be a paperweight. It can take up space and apply weight to the desk, but it can't do what it's designed to do, and that is to make computations, to do work. So without being connected to a power source, a computer can't do what it's designed to do. It can't fulfill its purpose by doing useful work. In the same fashion, if our spirit, the highest and most noble part of who and what we are, is disconnected from the Spirit of God, we can't do what we're designed to do. We can't fulfill our purpose either. So if we're disconnected from God, we can do some things. We can take up space. We can entertain ourselves. We can kill time. But we won't be accomplishing anything of eternal significance. That's what Jesus meant when he said, without me, you can do nothing. Nothing of eternal significance. Now, I'm not trying to be a cosmic killjoy, but we've all got to face the reality that that's just the way things are. There's plenty of room in God's design in life for fun and enjoyment. In fact, God wants to maximize our joy. So this hierarchy is God's divine design for the whole person. When things are functioning the way they should, we experience a synergy. That's where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And the harmony takes place when everything is operating in ways that are consistent with God's design laws for life. And that's the way we maximize our health potential, by aligning our lives more fully with God's natural design for spirit, mind, and body. When we do, we experience more spiritual strength, more mental, emotional fortitude, and more physical vitality. That's what we should be striving for. Now that we've put the spiritual component of health into perspective, let's talk about love for others. So, what was the first crisis in the Bible? Most people would say, well, it was when Satan tempted Adam and Eve. That was not the first crisis. The first crisis in the Bible was aloneness. After God had created all of creation, he created the animals and the birds of the air, and the Bible says it was good. And he created the light and the nighttime and the daylight, and it was good. And he created the vegetation, and it was all good. But in Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, we see this. It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him. Now, some people can twist this and take that to mean that women were put on this earth to take care of men's needs. That's not what this passage is teaching, right? And that belief has led to untold suffering and misery in the world. And it's not a good reflection of Christ. God created Adam with the capacity to love. And love is meant to be given away. And the reason why it was not good that man be alone is Adam had no one to serve. He had no one to give his love away to. Ephesians 5:25 says, husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself up for her. Love is supposed to be sacrificial and freely given to others. 1 John 3:16, we know love by this, that he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. John 15:13, greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. That's the way men are called to serve their wives. Now, that's a high calling. And of course, the marriage relationship is the most intimate form of human connection. But this concept should be extended to all relationships. Relationships just work better when each person has the other's well-being in mind. That's what a loving relationship looks like. John 13:35 says, by this, all will know that you are my disciples if you have love for one another. If we're followers of Jesus Christ, married, single, young, old, we should be loving well. 1 John 4:7 says, beloved, let us love one another, for God is love, and everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. When we embrace this truth, yes, it's beneficial to those we serve, but there are benefits attached there for us as well. God designed us to be in connected, loving relationships. Now, women tend to accept this idea a little more readily than men. So for some of my male listeners, some male members of the Natural Nation that may be having a little bit of a hard time with this idea, think about this. Who goes on an epic vacation by themselves? Very few people, right? Isn't it better to see the historical sites or a beautiful beach or a waterfall when you're sharing that experience with someone? Now, even the people that go on a backpack adventure through Europe, for instance, they take a lot of pictures so that when they get home, they can share their experiences with their friends and family. We all instinctively know that Genesis 2:18 is true. It is not good that the man be alone. When we're experiencing relational disconnect, we're operating outside of our God-given design, and that's never a good thing. Now, I want to play you a video. If you're listening to the audio version of this, you can get something out of the audio here, but it helps to watch this video because it's very powerful. If you're in your car or at the gym right now, that's fine. But later, you might want to go to my website or my YouTube channel and check out this video because it's really powerful. This is episode number 155. Now, the guy speaking in this video is Dr. Edward Tronick, and he's the director of the Child Development Unit at Harvard University. And the baby in this video is probably a little under a year old. I would say 10 or 11 months old. So let's watch or listen to this video. It's called the Still Face Experiment.
Babies this young are extremely responsive to the emotions and the reactivity and the social interaction that they get from the world around them. This is something that we started studying 30, 40 years ago, when people didn't think that infants could engage in social interaction. In the still face experiment, what the mother did was she sits down and she's playing with her baby, who's about a year of age.
I'm like a girl. Oh.
And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her.
Yeah.
This baby starts pointing at different places in the world, and the mother's trying to engage her and play with her. They're working to coordinate their emotions and their intentions, what they want to do in the world. And that's really what the baby is used to. And then we ask the mother to not respond to the baby. The baby very quickly picks up on this, and then she uses all of her abilities to try and get the mother back. She smiles at the mother. She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points. The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like, "Come on, why aren't we doing this?" Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions, they turn away, they feel the stress of it. They actually may lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing.
Okay. I'm here. And what are you doing? Oh, yes. Oh, what a big girl.
It's a little like the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is that normal stuff that goes on, that we all do with our kids. The bad is when something bad happens, but the infant can overcome it. After all, when you stop the still face, the mother and the baby start to play again. The ugly is when you don't give the child any chance to get back to the good. There's no reparation, and they're stuck in that really ugly situation.
So we can see that human beings are born with a need for relational connectedness. Having a need for relational connectedness is not something we learn later in life. We're born that way. And when we don't have it, we're going against our God-given design. And that conflict creates problems for us. It creates problems on a spiritual level, at a mental emotional level, and at a physical level as well. On a spiritual level, in the last episode, number 154, I talked about how having a dysfunctional relationship with our earthly father can inhibit us from experiencing all the intimacy we can with our heavenly Father. Now, earthly father relationships also impact the quality of our mental emotional state. There are some serious consequences to growing up in a home without a father. Now, I'm going to put a link in the show notes to this article where I found this information, but it's really quite staggering. Listen to these statistics. 85% of young people in prison come from fatherless homes. 71% of high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. 90% of all homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes. 60% of youth suicides are from fatherless homes. Now, there's a lot more sad statistics that this article points out, and we're not even touching on bullying or what other types of childhood trauma can do to a person. We don't have time to go into all that, but clearly, the lack of a close relationship with our fathers creates a massive handicap for young people on a mental, emotional level. And time does not heal all wounds. That's a lie. It's not true. Feelings buried alive never die. So these issues need to be addressed as adults. They don't just go away on their own. What about on a physical level? Look at this article published in the Harvard Health News. It's called The Health Benefits of Strong Relationships. And they said, social connections not only give us pleasure, they also influence our long-term health in ways every bit as powerful as adequate sleep, a good diet, and not smoking. Dozens of studies have shown that people who have social support from family, friends, and their community are happier, have fewer health problems, and live longer. Conversely, a relative lack of social ties is associated with depression and later life cognitive decline, as well as increased mortality. One study, which examined data from more than 309,000 people, found that a lack of strong relationships increased the risk of premature death from all causes by 50%, an effect on mortality risk roughly comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day and greater than obesity and physical inactivity. Is that not shocking? But, it's always nice to see scientific research once again catching up with what the Bible's been teaching for thousands of years. It truly is not good that the man be alone. So if you go to the doctor and after a 5-minute conversation walk out with a prescription in hand for some type of a drug, and that doctor didn't ask you one question about your relationships, you don't have a doctor, you have a dealer. Do you think the medical establishment has a hole in their treatment approach? You bet they do. And that hole is so big you can drive a Mack truck through it. Because the amount of connected relationships we enjoy or the amount of social isolation we experience has a great deal to do with our health outcomes over the long haul. The fact that the medical establishment is ignoring this is tragic. Now, my goal in this show is to not simply point out the problems. I don't want to be an armchair quarterback, but I want to offer you some solutions. So all this begs the question, how do we acquire and maintain strong relationships? That's easier said than done, right? Now, I bet you probably already guessed where I'm going to go. We can turn to the Bible. If we want to have good friends, we first need to be a friend. And good friends are willing to get over their selfishness and serve others well. Philippians 2:3 says, "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility, count others more significant than yourselves." And here's another admonition on how to be in relationships. It's in Romans chapter 15, verses 1 and 2. "Now we who are strong ought to bear the weaknesses of those without strength and not just please ourselves. Each of us is to please his neighbor for his good, to his edification." When we take the focus off ourselves and put it on to others, people are automatically attracted to that. It's the golden rule in action. Luke 6:31, treat others the same way you want them to treat you. But we have to acknowledge that we're all imperfect people. And when we're in relationship, we will hurt one another. I like the way John Eldredge puts it in his book, Waking the Dead. Living in community is a lot like a pack of porcupines on a cold night. We need to stick together for the warmth, but when we get too close, we poke each other with our spines. So if we're going to be living in community and be in connected relationship with other people, we've got to acknowledge that we will hurt one another, and dealing with those hurts effectively is a must. So one of the more important aspects to being in a loving relationship is confession and forgiveness. When we recognize that we've hurt someone, we need to make a sincere apology. Now, we've got to get this right because an apology done wrong can cause more hurt. The person offering the apology should start by taking responsibility and expressing sincere contrition. We should acknowledge the hurt and allow time for the one who's been wronged to express their hurt back to us. Now, we never make excuses. We don't say things like, well, I wouldn't have done that if you hadn't have fill in the blank. An effective apology is also always specific. It's not general. It's not vague. You wouldn't want to say something like, if I ever did anything to hurt you, I'm sorry. That's not an apology. Okay, that's just going to add to the hurt. Right? Or worse yet, I'm sorry you feel that way. That's one of the worst things you can possibly say because that's not taking any responsibility and that puts the blame on the victim and it makes matters worse. What you're saying is a normal person wouldn't feel the way you do. You're the problem. Now, what we should say is what I did was wrong and it mattered and I know that it hurt you. And then you pause and you give them time to respond. You give that person an opportunity to express how they feel back to you. You want them to put into words what that wrongdoing meant to them and how it made them feel. They might not have even done this themselves. So you give them that opportunity to verbalize that back to you and you listen. You just stop talking and you listen. And you say things like, is there anything else? Can you tell me more? You try to draw all those feelings out of them. They need to feel validated and they need to feel heard. After that's been explored thoroughly, then we say something like, will you forgive me? We don't say, I'm sorry in a general way. We explore this topic thoroughly and we ask them for forgiveness. Now, that person may not be ready to forgive right then and there. That's okay. But we give them that freedom to make that choice. But my experience with this is when we do a confession properly, the way I'm describing here, that person will be ready and willing to forgive. Now, another really important part of this process is offering forgiveness. So let's talk about forgiveness a little bit. If we're going to be in a relationship with anyone, we've got to understand that they're imperfect, broken human beings just like we are, and they will occasionally need our grace and forgiveness. We're all in the same boat. Matthew 18, verses 21 and 22. Then Peter came up to him and said, Lord, how many times shall my brother sin against me and I still forgive him? Up to 7 times? Jesus said to him, I do not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 7. And then Jesus proceeds to give Peter and the disciples the parable of the unmerciful servant. In other words, there's no end to it. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions about forgiveness. Forgiveness is a complete release. We let the hurt go, and we give up our right to retaliate in any way, shape, or form against that person, and we turn them over to God. Now, forgiveness is not primarily for the person that needs to be forgiven. It's primarily for us. Now, relational harmony may be restored, but it may not. But it's not required. That person could even be deceased, and we can still release them. So here's the problem. We tend to think that we're somehow punishing that person by not forgiving them. The truth is, withholding forgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Or we might say to ourselves, I'll forgive them when they apologize to me. That person may not even know they hurt you. We should never make an apology a precondition to our forgiveness. You see, forgiveness is always unilateral or one way, and it always goes to the undeserving. That's another misconception people have. We might say, well, they don't deserve my forgiveness. Well, they don't. But forgiveness always goes to the undeserving. And it's a good thing it does, because without God's unilateral, unconditional forgiveness to us, we're all in big trouble. Now, Jesus demonstrated this for us in stunning fashion. When Jesus was crucified, he was mocked, spat upon, blindfolded and sucker punched, stripped naked, had a crown of thorns put on his head, and nailed to a cross in brutal fashion. How did he respond? Luke 23:34. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Is that not staggering? Is that not amazing? The kind of unconditional forgiveness Jesus offers us? We should be doing the same for others. And if we want to be in loving, connected relationships, we need to use that as a model. I love this quote by Mark Twain. Forgiveness is the fragrance the rose gives off to the heel that crushed it. Okay, so that was a mouthful. So let's summarize. The spiritual component of health is all about loving relationships. Love for God, love for others, and love for ourselves. Now, if we truly care about our health, we will regularly take inventory of the connectedness we have with other people and be proactive about developing relational connectedness and avoiding social isolation. Kids that grow up in homes without a relationship with their father are set up for all kinds of undesirable mental, emotional, and behavioral issues. On a physical level, a lack of relational connectedness and social isolation are just as detrimental to our health as traditional lifestyle factors like smoking, diet, sedentary lifestyle, and obesity. The need for connection with others is not something we learn as adults. We're born with it, and relational harmony is something we all need to work on. Many of us grew up in homes where our relational needs were not met, and time does not heal all wounds. As adults, we need to go back and address some of the times when our relational needs were not met as children and teenagers and talk through those issues, maybe with a professional. If we're going to be in a relationship with others, sooner or later, we will be hurt and we will hurt others. In order to maintain our relational harmony and our connection with others, we need to practice confession and forgiveness on a regular basis. Withholding forgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So there's a few of my thoughts on love for others. There's a lot more to say on this, but I think that's enough for one episode. And don't forget, this show is called Christian Healthy Lifestyle, and I want to help you, the Natural Nation, make some productive lifestyle modifications. I'm looking for anyone in the Natural Nation to come on this show with me and do a lifestyle audit. There's no charge for this. I truly enjoy connecting with my listeners. And for a limited time, as a thank you, I'll send you a complimentary copy of my book, The Christian's Guide to Holistic Health. Go to my website, christianhealthylifestyle.com/audit. Click on the button there, answer a few questions, and you'll be all set up. I look forward to hearing from you. I hope you found this useful. If you're getting value out of this series of podcasts, I would appreciate you telling somebody you know. Holistic health from a Christian perspective is hard to come by. And if you have a like-minded friend, let them know about the show. I'll bet they'll thank you for it. And don't forget, I'm posting episodes once a week now. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know I've been posting every other week. But a couple of weeks ago, I started new episodes every week. So you can look forward to a new episode 1 week from today. That's it for now. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you. I enjoyed serving you. Go out there and live abundantly. I'll talk with you next time. Be blessed.